Hello, I'm Brian Downs. This is a Republic if you can keep it. It's May 11th, 2025 in the AM. I am not yet coming to you from an El Salvadorian oubliette nor Alcatraz prison. So, let's dip into the malfeasance column of the Trump cabal. The hearty dose of malevolence, the face of which is Stephen Miller, White House. What do we call him? Stephen Miller, something that Joseph Goebbels' pet ferret puked up. Stephen Miller, high-ranking member of the Trump administration, I believe Deputy Chief of Staff? Check me on that in the comments. Stephen Miller has recently announced that the White House is seriously looking at suspending habeas corpus. What is habeas corpus? This is an important thing to understand. Habeas corpus is a 1,000-year-old and more legal principle that says you must be able to justify, when you're a government, why you have arrested and incarcerated a person. Habeas corpus in Latin literally means we must have the body, which actually means something like we must have the person. You must bring the person into the court and show that you have reason to incarcerate him. Without habeas corpus, a government can simply arrest and imprison and keep anyone they wish at any time they wish for as long as they wish. Without habeas corpus, might makes right. Without habeas corpus, individual liberty evaporates. Stephen Miller says that the White House will suspend habeas corpus because the Constitution says that they can. He's wrong. He's a liar. The Constitution says that there is, in the hands of the government, the power to suspend habeas corpus in times of invasion or rebellion, which is to say armed conflict with another nation state. The White House is trying to argue that illegal immigrants are an invasion. They're not. No one has ever made this argument before. No one has ever made this argument successfully in any court. In any case, the White House doesn't have the power to suspend habeas corpus. No one has ever argued that. No one believes that except Stephen Miller, who is something that Vladimir Lenin's cat dragged in. Stephen Miller says, we'll suspend habeas corpus. When will you suspend it, Mr. Miller? Well, if the courts don't suspend it for us. His argument is that illegal immigrants in the United States do not have the right of habeas corpus anyway. This isn't true. The Constitution specifically tells us in the Bill of Rights that every person in the United States has the right to due process of law. Habeas corpus is a foundation of this concept. It doesn't say citizen. It doesn't say someone whose visa hasn't expired or has expired. It doesn't say any of that. It says person. That is clear. It's also clear that Stephen Miller is an evil little liar. Stephen Miller's argument, of course, is that the executive branch, which he seems to be in charge of as Trump's mind disintegrates, as Trump spends his days not getting security briefings, but spending millions of taxpayer dollars golfing on golf courses he owns. Stephen Miller believes that there are no checks on executive power. This is exactly the idea that was examined by Franklin, Jefferson, Washington, Adams, the whole gang back in the late 18th century. They said, here's an idea. No checks on executive power. What do we think of that, guys? No. Great. What else you got? The Constitution is clearly designed to prevent too much power from pooling in too few hands. Stephen Miller is a believer in authoritarianism. Stephen Miller is a fan of the police state. Stephen Miller should have been born in Bolshevik Russia or Nazi Germany, or maybe modern China would be a place he would enjoy more. North Korea, I can go on listing nightmare hellholes, but no, Stephen Miller feels that he ought to remodel the United States in the image of these places. Stephen Miller has the ear of the president. Stephen Miller is tolerated. That this man was allowed to set foot in the door of the White House is a public shame. That he is kept on staff, that he hasn't been fired out of a cannon at the moon is yet another reason that we must reject the Trump cabal and all it does. Habeas corpus is law. Otherwise, it is simply the man with the most clubs wins.